Good evening. Take 3. Welcome to the HolmFront. Good evening. I'm your host, Tyler. We have done so many episodes today. I'm hurting.
Yeah, this is our 8th episode today, so
that's
we're
not
cooking.
true at all, but that's close.
They don't have to know that.
That's true. No, that was like 9 episodes. I am Tyler, your host. And to my right, as always, is my really artistic friend,
Hello.
Mitch. Hello again for the 5th time today. So we just got done. I don't think this is going to be too long.
He says for a 35-minute episode. I'm going to guess 35 minutes.
Shh. We did like 35 minutes on the teaser trailer for
Yes, we did. Actually, I think that was 40.
movie. It was
Anyways.
close. We got into a big discussion. So we finished the 3rd episode of Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
Takes? Thoughts?
Well, it was a massive waste of Jude Law.
Yeah. Big time.
Right.
They are just throwing his character in the trash, just not even attempting to use his talent.
He could have been a really good Qui-Gon Jedi kind of character, and instead they want him to pretend to be a Jedi, but not really be one, and instead be a conniving pirate, a schemer, and it's like...
Which also would be fine to an extent if they used him well that way too. But
yeah,
they did not.
Right. Well, the whole thing is... So when we watched it, you had predicted like 8 different things, and I'm not really exaggerating that much, and all of them happened, and they happened exactly as you said they would. You're like, I don't remember if you said it in the last episode or if it was just something we exchanged, but you had said, you're like, okay, so he could get this key at any point, and he waits for the kids to be here. Why? And you're like, what he's gonna do is say, I didn't have a ship to get away from and that they would bring it up. I was like, well, maybe they'll address it, and they did address it. And she's like, well, why did you wait so long? And then he's like, well, I didn't have access to a ship, which is exactly what you said. But that whole argument is completely stupid because
it's a port.
There's
so many
ships everywhere.
ships.
Just steal. You're a pirate. Steal a ship for yourself. Is it that hard?
Yeah. So I predicted because the end of the last episode 2, they're all in a cell. Jude Law appears and he's like, "You guys are here. The only thing preventing us from escaping is that key,
and it's illusion.
And the distance between us and the key is an illusion." And then I thought he was gonna like coach one of the kids into using the Force or something, which was stupid for sure. But I felt like the show has proven itself to be capable of that.
Yeah, I just have no faith. So
no, not at all. But then he uses the Force. He like reaches out, grabs the key, and pulls it in. I was like, "So you've been stuck in this cell for like you could have gotten out at any time at all."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yep. I just waited until I have a bunch of kids to draw more attention to myself in order to justify getting out right now because they probably brought a ship with them." I was like, "You're in a port. This is where all of the ships are." So I was like, I know you're going to use that reason, but I really hope that you have a better one. And they didn't.
Right.
The minute they get out, they ask the question. You called that they were going to ask the question. I called that he was going to answer that way. Both of them happened. He's like, "Well, I had to wait until I had a ship available." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You wait for a group of
Who would
children
hang out in a brig just waiting around?"
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, also, why would you wait until a group of kids? Why would you assume that they have a ship for one? I mean, I guess he can listen to their conversation or whatever, but why would he assume that they have a ship that is capable of doing what he needs to get done? Because it's like, this is clearly a group of children. You clearly know what children are. Why would you assume that they have what you need? It just, like, again...
And who waits for kids to show up?
Why would you wait in the brig for
really
kids
weird.
to show up?
Makes no sense.
So...
Well, wait a minute. Was this... Actually, no, this isn't his ship, though. It's not, is it?
It's not.
Yeah, no, it's
You would
just a
kind of
random ship.
assume that maybe it's leaning that direction, and then he sees it, and he's like, "That's not your ship, is it?" So you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so he doesn't recognize the ship. Because at first I thought the same thing, like, oh, this is
Yeah.
gonna be like his ship or something, and he's gonna know where it went, and it's gonna be
Right.
like his treasure stash or something. But it's not. So all that to say, yeah, we both called a couple of things that happened right at the beginning of the episode, like right there. And I
Yeah.
don't want it to be that predictable. I mean, I get it. You and I kind of know certain narrative traits and things, but like that predictable, really?
If I predict something, you know it's bad just because I'm actually not very good at predicting movie stuff. I tend to just kind of like when I sit down to a movie, I just like I had the ending of Sixth Sense spoiled for me, and then I went and saw the movie and was like,
You still were
he's
surprised.
dead. He
That
died.
is impressive.
Like that's how bad it is. Like I'm super gullible. It's just the way that I am. I don't know. I just give myself over to it. But like this stuff is, oh man. So if I guess it, I'm just like that's my new radar. Just because I know
If you can guess this much, then it must be really juvenile.
Yeah, because like I know that you can pull me over and make me forget about things that I should know or be thinking about.
Sure.
So if you can't make me do that, then it's not a very good sign.
Right.
Yeah. So they break out and they get the ship, and then there's like this stupid exchange where they're like, "What about our droid? You got to go bring him back.
Yeah.
We have to.
So
We're not leaving without him." And it's like, we're on the ship. It's really inconvenient to go back and get him now. Why didn't you say that when we were on our way? He didn't know you guys had a freaking
Because they had
droid.
a long breakout sequence too.
Yeah.
Because they're like, he's like sensing who's in front of them because he guess he can use the Force somehow.
Yeah.
And then she's sensing droids and such. The little Geordie girl, I don't remember her name.
Yeah, she has like
So they're like
Geordie's glasses.
wandering down the halls.
KB, I think was her name.
KB, there it is. Yeah. So they're wandering down these halls, and they're like, we got to get to our ship. And then they get to the ship. They get inside the ship. They get the ship turned on. They're talking about everything. And then they're like, okay,
wait a minute.
now that we're about to leave, it's like traveling with real children. It's like, oh, I got to pee. They wait until he turns on the vehicle, and they're like, we're not leaving without the droid. And he's like, you waited? We went through the whole base just now, and you wait till we're out of the base to make me go back into the base to pick up the droid and then come back here. So you know it's this like contrived scenario in order to bring about something. We didn't really know what it was until there's like a chase sequence of him running away from all these pirates, and then they're attached to this fuel line, and he hyperspace off with the fuel line still attached.
Because it won't detach.
It won't detach.
For any reason.
Right.
And
there's
it's like,
no safety at all on this thing.
It's pulling all these other ships because it's attached to this like pillar that's connecting the fuel lines. And so that's connected to like a whole bunch of ships. So he's pulling it, and then that's pulling everything else. And they're like crashing into each other and causing all this destruction. And it's like you said it best. You're like, why is there no safety net? Like, why is this a thing that can happen? You're a pirate bay.
Right.
How often is it that someone needs to get into their ship and just bolt? Often, I would think.
Yeah, you'd think that the scenario has presented itself before. And then here's the other thing. This seems to be a trope that people picked up from the original trilogy that no one understood. So the Millennium Falcon it's an object in the universe based on George Lucas's experience with cars when he was a kid. He's used to a lot of mechanical issues. He built this car that he got from his dad from scratch. He was this little like two-cylinder car. He's like, this thing's way too slow. So he rebuilt the whole thing. And it's something that actually almost killed him. He was going super fast, and someone turned out in front of him. He turned, someone hit him, and he ran into a tree. And his safety belt that he had built into the car that's supposed to keep him in the car if he had an accident like that broke and threw him out of the car, and it's the only thing that saved him. So he had this like epiphany that he had been given this second chance, and he wanted to do something with it. And it was one of the things that propelled him on to do these things. So the Millennium Falcon was kind of this reflection of his mechanical background. So it's this thing that's like constantly failing, or Han Solo is constantly working on it. Everyone refers to it as a piece of junk, et cetera, et cetera. Star Wars has a tendency to constantly bring this back up. Like, oh, what a piece of junk. So they do that in this show. But the thing is, I'm watching this. He's attached to a fuel line. This fuel line is apparently strong enough to hold not only him, but then his little dinky ship, the one that they call a piece of junk, is able to pull that thing and like 6 other ships.
Yeah,
He's just like yanking on, and I'm like, this isn't a piece of junk. This thing's a freaking beast. and then he jumps into hyperspace connected to this fuel line.
yeah.
I was like, okay, for one, that would probably obliterate his ship. I mean, it just in a realistic term.
Yeah.
If it did detach that hose, the rate at which he's accelerating would whip that thing back so that it would just destroy everything behind it. Like,
yeah.
like when they demonstrated that in Last Jedi, when he shoots hyperspace into all those ships and just obliterates everything. Like, you made these rules.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're wrong. Like, they probably would be that way in a mathematical sense. Anyway, so aside from all that, like, I know that this is a stupid, like, I'm trying to read in these scientific facts into a Star Wars show.
Right.
Star Wars kids show. But again, these are rules that they're establishing.
If they bring it up, that's when it's really a problem. It's
Right.
Like,
So anyway, so they escape. He's like, I don't know where Ad-Adin is, their home planet. So apparently their home planet is something that's hidden. Everyone knows about it because apparently it's this big treasure planet, but it's not on any star charts. So there's this random ship that they get in, and it hyperspaces out into nowhere, but there's no way to get back to where this ship came from in the beginning, which is Ad-Adin, this home planet for these kids. So then Jude Law is like, I know a person that'll be able to figure it out. And so they go to this planet, and there's this stupid.
hold on. It's a moon.
Oh, sorry, moon.
And it looks like a moon in every sense of the word. And they're just walking around.
They just
breathing
wander around on the
nothing,
moon, yeah.
I guess. And not freezing to death
No
for some
suits,
reason.
no nothing. It's just they're just
Like,
walking
what
on
is
the moon.
this? Like, the only reason why it was okay on Endor is that there's trees everywhere.
Yeah, it looks
There's
like
obviously
an inhabitable
atmosphere.
place. Yeah.
Like, it's a moon, it just means it's a satellite. So it rotates around, it orbits around something else. So, like, if you have a planet, a moon orbits around that planet. That's the only thing that's noteworthy about what they are. But, like, when he lands on it and it's just this desolate, like, our moon.
Yeah,
it's like,
it looks like our moon. And it's funny because they're just wandering around on this moon for one, but then they go to this owl squirrel creature.
this cat, owl, squirrel.
It
It's
looks
freaking weird.
bizarre. It moves really awkward. It's strange.
It was weird. It was weird.
So, but here's the thing. Before they get there, Jude Law turns around, and it's obviously derivative of a conversation that Han has with Leia about Lando.
Yeah.
So when they're attached to the Star Destroyer and they're trying to find somewhere to escape to, he finds Bespin, which is managed by an old friend of his, an old like pirate buddy, who's Lando Calrissian. But he says something to Leia akin to he's not super trustworthy, but he doesn't like the Empire, so he's the better of two options. Basically, right now we're trapped between a rock and a hard place. This one, Jude Law says it in a much more like overt, cringy way. Because they're like walking up, and then he stops them before they get to the door, and he's like, so, I don't fully trust this character. She might maybe stab us in the back. Not like literally, but she might give us up. Okay, let's go. And so it's just this like really stupid way of saying what Han said before, and it's obviously calling back to better times. So I didn't like that. And then they get in there, and then she does call in a couple of X-Wings from the New Republic, I guess.
Why they sent X-Wings is really bizarre, too.
So they set up in Dave Filoni's universe, and I refuse to acknowledge that he's any part of Star Wars. He's a fan fiction guy. In his version of Star Wars, the New Republic uses X-Wings as like space police, essentially.
That
like,
makes zero sense. They're fighters.
Not anymore. Now they're just the police of the universe. So when like for instance when Mando is flying around in his the ship from Phantom Menace, they pull up alongside him and they're like, pull over. Like that's his universe. That's why it's not associated with Star Wars. But so in this one they come in flying, and then here's the thing. Again, you're constantly asking me to suspend my disbelief so far. Not only while they're under attack, so these things, they're like shooting some stun gun or something, some stun missiles at the ship, which I was like, okay, I get it. They understand that there's kids on board. They're shooting at this thing in order to like shut down the engines. Jude Law is like, hey, I need help. So you fly the ship and evade their lasers while I go bring these other two to he didn't say what, he just says, follow me. So he leaves this kid in charge of flying this ship while 2 X-Wings are shooting at him.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? And then he brings the other 2 kids to these guns. And they're the guns
he puts
from
them
like
in ball turret guns.
Yeah, just like in New Hope.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, shoot at him. And I was like, you're going to make kids trying to shoot these guys out of the air? And then these kids, of course, are like, ooh, cool, guns.
Yeah, let's
go.
Yeah, especially Whim. He's like, this is awesome. I'll kill them both.
Yeah.
Like, dude, those
And
are
then the
people in
girl's
there.
all mad. She's like, that was my shot. And I was like,
That
why?
was my kill. Yeah.
Why are you guys arguing
These
about
little
this?
murderous children.
Yeah.
What the crap?
And then he goes back and shoots into hyperspace, and that's the end of the episode. I don't think we're going to be doing any more of this show.
I think the rest of it will just be us ragging on it. And I don't know, like, unless you guys really want us to, then leave a comment or a suggestion and be like, yeah, I'm enjoying your guys' commentary. Just because, though, like, I don't know what else to say, because it feels like it's reaching a point where I'm like, you guys are breaching into this total, like, fan service land that, I mean, I think it's clear that both of us just disagree with the fundamental premise of the show, and that just
We've basically come to the same conclusion: this isn't worth it.
Yeah,
It's not worth watching.
Well, because it's hard to like. I mean, even if I like, let's say I give myself over to the show, then I still don't like it, right? Like if I just accept what it is and be like, okay, try to appreciate what's here, it's like then I'm still frustrated because like there's one thing I do want to mention that I just see a lot now. I feel, and I'm just really getting tired of it. And like Jude Law, he presents himself as a Jedi, and he like, you know, he pulls the key,
Right.
and then he like does a mind trick to like get some guards to walk away. And then there's actually a pretty decent conversation on the ship where KB, she's like, oh, wait, everybody's sleeping except for her. And he's like, you can't sleep? And then she's like, I'm not sure that I trust you. And he's like, and she's like, it's statistically like basically impossible that you would be a Jedi. And he's like, well, maybe you should trust your heart more often. Like some things aren't going to be, you know, proven by like measurable quantitatives like that. And then he uses the Force and turns the lights out to try to put her to sleep, right? Or to try to let her get some rest. And that was like a really nice gesture of him presenting a valid and interesting argument, and then, you know, actually showing to like reinforce his position of the argument. But they're so concerned with like unearthing that and being like, but he's really a scoundrel. He's Crimson Jack. He's the evil character that they got to work with, and that's the tension.
Well, and the thing is, they're the ones that call him a Jedi. I mean, he has these abilities of the Force, clearly, but they call him a Jedi. He never claims to be a Jedi. And then they're upset when they find out that he's not a Jedi. And it's like, all right, sure.
But the point I'm getting at is like, it's like there can't be any adult role models anymore. That's what it starts to feel like.
I see, yeah.
And I just really am getting tired of that message.
It's like the kids are dictating the story, and the adults are kind of inept.
Right, but the kids are helpless too. So it's just like everybody's a total buffoon and a failure in this. That's what it feels like. Like, you know, he's driving the ship and he's screwing that up, and it's just like, and then they sabotage the whole thing because they're like, we'll go back and get our robot. We should have told you that earlier, but we didn't. It's like, oh man, like this is like so much more, like this is so inconvenient now to do it this way. Like maybe if you have kids, this is just like, oh, I had that happen to me last weekend.
Right.
But I'm not in that position. Neither are you. So it just is like, this seems like bad storytelling to me.
Well,
why would it have been so hard if they were like, you know, going up and they're about to enter the crowd and they're like, okay, let's try to blend in plain sight. And then they're like, wait a minute. We've got to get our droid. You came with a droid? Yeah. All right, let's go back into the cave and find him.
Sure.
Why couldn't we just do that? That would have made perfect sense. Instead,
it seems like Jude Law is just kind of dictated around by these children.
Yeah, because we forgot something, so we got to make them go back. And I had excitement to it, and it's like, it's not exciting. It just feels like you're prolonging getting the story done.
Right, you didn't have enough ideas, so now this is just the way you pad the episode.
And it was working. That's the thing. It was working with Jude Law as the Jedi. I liked it.
Right.
He was like, he was doing some Jedi stuff. He was kind of like, he was more controlled and maintained. And then like, he presents him this option. He's like, we have a choice. We could go that way and into the crowd, or we can go the other way where there's nobody. And one of the kids is like, well, let's just go where there's nobody. Then we're not going to get caught. It makes sense. And he's like, true, but it would be easier to blend in plain sight where there's a bunch of people. If we go the secret route, if there's so much as one person, they will know that we're escaping. I mean, he doesn't put it in those exact words.
Sure.
But that was like, oh, okay. So he's kind of presenting an interesting thought thing for the kids to kind of unravel. But like now we're not going to get any of that because he's really the pirate, and they're
Right.
going to have to do these constant conflicts, and it's just like tired of it.
Yeah, again, wasting the talent that is Jude Law
Yeah.
and kind of just asking too much of your suspension of disbelief. And the
Right.
the thing with Lando Calrissian was that he really portrayed well what that kind of character could bring to that story.
Yeah.
Whereas this owl character just seemed like they made her look too good to contrast to Jude Law to make Jude Law overtly look evil.
Yes.
And then that manipulated him in a position where the kids had the upper hand. Whereas you look at something like Stranger Things, and they never present the adults as completely idiotic or inept.
Right.
They're actually fairly well adjusted. They just are having a hard time believing this reality that comes to slap them in the face later.
Yeah.
The kids' imaginations are the things that kind of lead them there. But then obviously everybody jumps on board, and then everybody's kind of on the same team. And then the kid and the adults take charge. They're like, "Oh man, this is way deeper than I thought it was. We need to jump in here and make sure that these kids aren't in danger anymore." This one doesn't seem like it seems like it's going to keep the kids in charge the whole time, and Jude Law is not really going to add to it. He's just kind of a tag along that has some valuable information because he's a prior pirate or whatever.
Yeah, because the kids are like, well, we're not going to let you boss us around anymore because we're suspicious of you, so you work for us now.
Right.
And it's like, this is when the Republic is coming in and they're going to like catch them or whatever. And, you know, if they caught them, they're not going to send them back to Aden if they don't know where that is and there's no map for it.
Sure.
So it's sort of like a senseless argument. It's just like you can't go with them because you can't get back home that way. And you'll basically never go back home because they just flat out don't know where it is.
Right.
So it's just not going to happen. And you have a better chance with a pirate guy because he has a vested interest to go there.
Yeah.
They don't. They're just going to put you up as orphans.
It seemed like Jude Law should have been more able to make a better deal. I mean, maybe he'll be able to manipulate it later or something, but like it seems like he should have been a little bit smarter in that situation instead of just being outsmarted by a couple of kids.
It just feels like a silly source of conflict, though, doesn't it?
That too.
Because it's like,
yeah,
like they're so helpless, like they're so useless. These kids, and I mean, I'm not ragging on them because like I get that's the point. They're kids, and they're portraying that accurately.
Sure.
That's how kids of this age, which is pretty young, would behave because it's just a lot. They don't know how to navigate all this stuff. They don't have a lot of, you know, knowledge and experiences with any of it. But it's like therein lies the problem. You want them to kind of be in control,
right?
And it's not believable for them to be.
Yeah.
So then it's like it was like satisfying to have like an adult character and like the kids with it. I didn't have a problem with it. Like with them kind of a back and forth. I was like, oh, that's interesting because then you have the adult who I'm more interested in, and then the kids they're more interested in him. Just like Luke and Obi-Wan. It's a similar kind of dynamic.
Sure.
I'm like, what's wrong with this dynamic? Like, why is it so horrible that the adult was the mature, level-headed, wise person? It's just silly. It's like, it's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm ragging on it too much, but it just feels like I keep seeing, it's like, we can't have adult mentors. We can't have wise sages anymore. Right. No, those aren't a thing. Like, all the adults are actually evil and corrupt inside. It's like, come on. That's just not true to life.
That's fair. Yeah, again, we understand that this is a kid's show and it's catering to a certain audience, but it really does seem to be at the expense of intelligent storytelling. It's, in my opinion. But again, if you have any comments on that, I mean, let us know. I understand this is appealing to a generally wide audience, but I also know that Star Wars has laid their bar is so low that it, like just the fact that you're not getting slapped in the face. I will say, and I'm gonna say it, like I have mentioned this in a previous episode about Star Wars. I do not like this content in Star Wars. The two moms thing was just so stupid. It's just stop putting that stuff in Star Wars. Like it's so insidious because you're not committing to this message. It's so brief and tiny that you know it's just going to
in the background.
Yeah, it's just going to piss off all these people that you don't like or don't agree with politically. But it's enough to put in there and be like, yeah, see, we've got our quota met. And it's like, knock it off.
Yeah, it's
just
treating people like a quota. I hate that.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and it's not biologically feasible. I'm sorry.
Well, so they adopted or whatever. I mean, that part's fine, but it's just also like it's there's no context. They're in there for like a brief scene back on the hometown. And it's like
Right.
the parents are having this gathering.
It's
or whatever.
KB's
But they don't
moms
even
or whatever.
say anything. They're just like, I mean, they
We're
say
worried
like one
about our
line.
children.
Yeah,
It's
it's just some generic like that.
okay.
And then it pans back to Wim's dad, and he has removes the glasses. What am I gonna do?
Which is how I felt the whole show.
Yeah, it was very emblematic. So
Anyway,
yeah, I don't know. It's
Skeleton
just
Crew.
Disney propaganda stuff. We'll still review Star Wars stuff at some point. I mean, there's always things to revisit.
there
but
is
yeah, I don't know. This one is
kind of run its course with us, I think. Unless you guys really want to hear more from us, which I can't see that being the case, but
I hope this show is a jumping off point for younger kids to get into Star Wars and actually appreciate like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
But I also just feel like it's an unnecessary stepping stone. Like you can just watch the original trilogy. You can wait a couple years and then watch the original trilogy.
I agree.
That's all I got. That's what I
There it
got for
is.
you.
Anyway, have a good night. See you guys next time.